All right, good Saturday morning. It's time for another episode of Hobby Hotline. I feel like I haven't been on the show in a while. It's probably not the case, but it just probably just feels like that. But happy to be back and on this morning. Hope everyone out there is doing fine as well. And I'm joined on today's episode by two guys that combined on the screen. The experience in the hobby is. As Yoda's age. I'll put it that way
Like a
to be
hundred
polite.
years.
Oh, definitely three fingers. Uh, and so happy to be joined by Uncle Rich Klein as always. And
48 for
below
me,
us,
48 for me in the active hobby. So Orlando, you only have to be 52.
I think I got about
and
52.
only
Yeah.
below us on screen level, not in stature, is Orlando, a collector's dream. And Orlando's probably sitting there like, how the heck am I going to get a word in edgewise today? But don't worry, Orlando, you will. I hope. So we
I'll
not a
interrupt you,
huge,
John.
yeah, by all means, because I'll probably do that once or twice, if not more than that. We'll get to some good mornings before we get right into it. Larry Gitlin, good morning. Stukes, as always. Trace Hombres, three of us, yeah. I don't know about that, but thank you, Larry. Says great looking crew.
Well, wait a
Mad
second,
City
John.
crew.
I liked. When did you do the goatee?
I've always had it. I think I took some out in the middle, so this is
Yeah,
more
because that
sort of.
actually looks good. He's right. I was thinking to myself, John looks different. It looks good. Less
It
hair
might
is
be the
better on him.
glasses. I got new glasses too, so
That
that
too.
probably
There you
factors
go. He's
into
the
it.
man.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying not to look as old as my age, as much as hold it off as long as I can. Sign of the pastime. Good morning, Peter B. Good morning from rainy Cape Cod. Well, I'm in rainy Syracuse, so we share the weather. I think your scenery is a little better looking in Cape Cod than mine in Syracuse. Mookie Chilson. Morning. Dean Gearhart. Hello, all. Good morning. Dean. All right, guys. We're gonna lead off with this one because it's ongoing and it's making news, and even more so for what's the trends and what's going on during it, right? And it'll be on today after us. We're kind of the kickoff for the draft today, but the NFL draft I'm speaking of, and I titled this the NFL draft in the Shador slide. Shador on some people's boards, the best quarterback on the board, or in the top 20 of just overall players. We're now into the fourth round, starting today, and he's not on the board. A lot of people know I'm a Steeler fan. They are like super thirsty for a quarterback, and they didn't take him. Not only once did they bypass him, but twice. And there's been, I think, five or six quarterbacks selected thus far. None of them by the name of Shador. We've seen. I'll say one more thing, guys, and then I'll let you guys in here. We've seen sort of the running backs kind of make a comeback. A few taken in the first round, where we and Ashton Genty with the number 6 pick to the Raiders. And so we're seeing this has got. I watch the draft every year. This is like a holiday for me. This is the weirdest draft I've ever seen, guys, and I've seen a lot of them. So I don't know who wants to go first here, but
Orlando,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I'll go first. Sure. Yeah, I think the problem with Shadir is just he's got a lot of baggage, guys. I mean, when you got a father that's really going to get involved in there and is kind of pushing for him and all that, that's gonna create a lot of headline news that maybe some teams don't want. And I just truly don't think that he's as good as they make him out to be. He's not as talented as Cam Ward, but he's a talented quarterback. I am surprised that he slipped down so far. I really thought he would go probably in the second round, but I just couldn't see him in the first round. I see a lot of teams are picking, like my Dolphins. The Dolphins picked a big offensive guy and a big defensive guy. 330-pound guys and 6'4", 6'5" guys. And for the Dolphins, at least, it's to help out, with Tua and the blocking. But I think I see a lot of teams going for, you know, big. guys versus a lot of the talent. And, because quarterbacks, as we all know, it's super risky. No matter how good you think they are, from college to the NFL, it's a big step. And some guys just do it. And I think Shadir is going to be one of those guys that I think he's going to struggle personally. He didn't play for a big team, not one of the big teams. And he's a great quarterback, but I don't know if he's going to be a star. For me, I see him more as a backup in the NFL. I mean, that's my opinion. So I don't know what you guys think.
Okay, I've got a few things. One, let's not forget that the two people in the two most recent quarterbacks in the GOAT discussion, Joe Montana and Tom Brady, were drafted in the 3rd and 6th round, respectively. So it's, yes, a lot of times you get a good shot with the number 1 draft pick or a first rounder, and sometimes you get Jamarcus Russell and other people like that fail. In 1991, when John had his card store, and he probably sold a lot of these cards, the Jets drafted a young guy by the name of Browning Nagel. Yeah. How many Browning Nagel cards did you sell then, and how many Browning Nagel cards can you sell today? There was also Todd Marinovich, a.k.a. Todd Marinovich. And there was one quarterback out of the 91 draft. Let's not forget Dan McGuire. His brother's a potential baseball Hall of Famer. Dan, not so much. There's one guy, I think he was the 5th quarterback drafted in 91. I think he was a first rounder. His name is Brett Favre. He's the only one of that 91 class that actually did anything. So you never know for sure. Same thing today. You see some of these first rounders do great. You see some of them fall apart. Sometimes you see lower picks. Brock Purdy's made the Super Bowl, made the playoffs. He was the last player selected. So where you fall to, Ron Wolf, the old Packers general manager, man, I'm doing as good as John on his monologues. Yeah. Ron Wolf, the old Packers general manager, always said, I want to draft a quarterback every year. And he drafted among people he brought to camp, Mark Brunell and Kurt Warner. So it's not necessarily I'll put in air quotes, a death sentence for Shadur Sanders not to have been drafted. But this draft to me was interesting when I looked at the first round. A few running backs and a few quarterbacks, but this is not going to be a draft, I suspect, where the rookie class is going to really be amazing for Panini's final year as the NFL license.
Yeah, I think there's some sleepers in this draft. Maybe not so much big names, Rich, but guys that really kind of come on once the season starts, and you say, "Oh, okay." Especially on the receiver side, I think that the receiver side of this is probably the strongest. But I'm a big fan of Ashton Genty. I wouldn't have been disappointed if the Steelers. Normally, I don't like taking running backs too early, but I wouldn't have been crushed had they made a move up to try to get someone like that. He went to the Raiders at 6. And I think you touched on it, or I know you touched on it when we were talking before we went live, Rich. I think Saquon Barkley has sort of opened the door back up for teams like to consider taking running backs at higher places. We kind of had that 5 to 6 years, maybe even longer, where running backs became an afterthought. Even as free agents, they weren't getting big contracts. To the point the union was even like publicly, exclaiming their displeasure and that this is troublesome. And now we're seeing a little bit kind of a turning back around. Not fully yet, but at least the start is there. I mean, in some drafts, there was no running backs taken in the first round. I think we had 2 this year, so in the first, and then a bunch more since those first 2. So I think the running backs making a comeback. Why? I think we saw an Eagles, Chiefs matchup where myself included thought the Chiefs would win because of the magic of Mahomes. We're going to talk about him here in a little bit later as well. But what did we see? That Saquon Barkley took the Eagles. Well, that was the missing piece. They lost the previous Super Bowl they were in, but they controlled the clock with the run game. They scored a bunch of points, and they blew the doors off the Chiefs, surprisingly. I'm not surprised that the Eagles won, but in the fashion they did. I think people saw that game. Obviously, everyone who's not in the game in the NFL watched the game, or the majority, and said, "Hey, you get a game changing running back. That changes the whole outlook on what you can do." So if a running back is viewed that way, like Gentry in this year's case, and Amari Hampton, I think you're going to get picked earlier. So that's sort of kind of reversing the trend we've been seeing. With Shador, I noticed probably people didn't even put him on their draft board, guys, just because what you said, Orlando, the stuff you get with it. His dad probably making comments at press conferences about NFL teams and who has him. I get that. And he may not be the best quarterback. You said that too. Cam Ward is rated on most people's boards the number one quarterback, but even he has some holes. If you know, is it just not the best quarterback class next year? At least on paper, shaping up to be better. Maybe teams are just like sort of punting this year and saying, "We'll wait till next year when there's more to select from." But with Shador, like even the talent, like how do you not get picked at this point? You know, am I thinking he's the next, Patrick Mahomes? No, but when you're a team that needs a quarterback, aka the Steelers, the Giants, the Browns, not anymore because they wound up picking someone not named Shador. But the fact that he slid this far, there's even the analysts on the draft telecast said, I don't know what to say. For one of the few times in my life, I don't know. There may be even something we don't know about, guys. Maybe Deion Sanders called some of these teams because of his status and being an NFL Hall of Famer, and called some of these GMs and said, "Hey, don't draft my son, or do draft my son, and this is the number we want." Maybe he's meddling too much, and teams are like, we didn't even draft the kid, and this guy's calling us. And then we draft him. We're going to get phone calls every day from Deion about how we're handling his son now that he's on the roster. So I wonder if that's a little bit of that going on, guys. I mean, what do you think? You think people are just like, we don't think he's great. He may not be terrible. We don't think he's great. And he's not great enough. All the stuff that comes along with him.
John, one thing is, remember, the NFL has a rookie salary structure. So Deion can't call to say, "Hey, you got to pay him more." Where you get drafted is what you get paid. So but you're right.
But he could still call and say, he could call the Steelers. He could call Omar Khan, the Steelers GM, and say, "Hey, he's better than Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson, who you have on the roster."
He is, by the way. He is, by the way. Let's be honest.
But a GM doesn't want a dad calling him and telling him that. They can figure that out.
Well, I'm more surprised.
Maybe he even said, if you could sign Aaron Rodgers, but my boy's even better than him. So waste your time there. And maybe he's doing stuff like that.
Well, I'm surprised. I'm more surprised the Cowboys haven't gotten him yet. I suspect that if nobody else takes him, the Cowboys will. Deion and Jerry Jones have a pretty good relationship. So and Jerry Jones loves star power. So I'm a little surprised that they didn't take them. I know you're spending all that money on Dak Prescott, but there's going to come a time where you want a replacement. And because you don't want to spend $60 million on Dak, and the biggest bargain for NFL teams, and this is like with all the salaries NFL people have, but one of the secrets for a lot of NFL teams is building a team when you have a quarterback on the rookie contract. Because once you have a quarterback on the rookie contract, that's good. That gives you 4 or 5 years to really build a team around. And if you notice, a lot of the quarterbacks get good really quickly. The game is very different now than it was from, John, you're definitely the oldest among us. So even from when you were growing up, the game is very different between college and the pros.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between the college and the pros. And, I think TJ online just said a good comment on there, said that Shadir probably has a bad attitude. Maybe that's what it is, So, and the way I'm looking at it is, if I'm going to draft somebody that has some issues and may not be my starting quarterback, right away. I mean, I'm looking at maybe drafting, you know, a wide receiver or a great tight end. And I've seen a lot of wide receivers and tight ends being drafted this draft versus others, you know, and the quarterbacks seem to be falling and falling because I don't know if there's any quarterback that is really a sure thing in this draft. Now, you never know, like Rich was saying, you know, I mean, look at Tom Brady, you know, and all these guys, but I mean, is there someone there that could be a sleeper? I don't see a quarterback that really can come on and really be a big star in this particular draft. Even Cam Ward, I think, is going to have trouble.
Yeah, that's a good point, Orlando. My Steelers didn't take Shador. I'm going to be a homer here. I'm a season ticket holder, and I watch this guy obviously every game at home, and then I watched the road games on TV. Had really one bad game in Pittsburgh, but an incredible year in ACC, and that's my guy, Kyle McCord at Syracuse, who I'm surprised some of these guys that actually even went ahead of him. I'm not, saying he has the name of Shador Sanders, but he had a great combine by all accounts. He broke ACC records. If my Steelers wind up taking him here sometime today in whatever round, I'm not going to be that crushed about it because I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, but he might. You got to take a chance, right? You got to try to get a guy. If you take him later, it hurts a lot less if they don't pan out. You made a point, Orlando. Excuse me. But, you said about maybe they're viewing Shador as a backup quarterback at this point. And are you going to take him knowing that maybe dad's going to be on the phone like, why ain't you playing my boy? Or why is my boy on the bench? Or the guy you're starting can't hold a candle to Shador. What are you doing? And maybe they just like, I don't need that. Like he's the only guy. He's the only quarterback that's dad is going to be able to like patch their way and get their call in here, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to deal with that. And there's other quarterbacks, and this quarterback class next year is bigger. So maybe Dion, as crazy as it sounds, kind of hurt. And Shador himself, by all accounts, we're not in the room, guys, but a lot of his interviews, a lot of people didn't, like anonymous sources, didn't put their name on it, but said he was cocky, brash, very full of himself. And maybe teams are saying, man, he hasn't even thrown a pass in the NFL, and he's like this now. What are we getting ourselves into if we take this guy? So I just think they probably didn't represent him well. But this drop is, we thought the Aaron Rodgers drop during his draft, remember that, was bad, and they kept showing him in the green room. And I felt terrible for him. Not as much now, turning out the way he is. But, this is the worst draft, the worst drop I've ever seen as far as where someone was rated. There was people that, not a ton, but there was people who said he should have been the first pick in this draft over Cam Ward. Now, I don't agree with that, but some analysts have said that. And here we are in the hundreds, and he's still in his draft room at home that he built. Add that to the, whatever you want to call brash list. So this is the weirdest draft I've ever seen, not just on the Shador, but even some of the other stuff. I knew something was up. Besides the slide, when Dylan Gabriel gets drafted by the Browns ahead of Shador Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel is, now he's going to probably become the next Tom Brady after I say this. Dylan Gabriel is a questionable backup in this league, and yet the Browns made him their first quarterback they took this year. So that's, anyone that says Dylan Gabriel's better than Shador Sanders didn't watch any college games. So they just don't want, no one wants to touch this guy. And I get it, but I'm shocked that no one's taking a chance at this far down the draft board. Like I was talking with my son watching the draft. Even if I had a quarterback, he's just such a value at this. It's almost worth just taking him, whether you could trade him or, just say, hey, well, he's just too high of a draft pick to still be on this board. Let's take him and see what we got. But no one wants to pull the trigger. Kind of going, kind of close. How do you think this affects his cardboard prices and chrome prices? Like, not even so much prices, but demand. We see GMs are sort of, don't want to deal with them. Do you think collectors say, hey, maybe I shouldn't be buying Shador cards, because if GMs don't want him because they don't think he's good or worth maybe I shouldn't be spending my hard-earned money on buying some stuff and putting it away and sitting on it. What do you guys think?
Eventually, the results are the answer. But to start, some people may even look and say, look how far he dropped. It's a good bargain. It's a good play to be counterintuitive to say, I want to buy these cards. So I don't think it'll drop as much as you think they will. Obviously, Cam War cards will be the hot cards coming out this year. And just wait for the Fanatic. I'm going to say this because it's happened the last couple of years. Wait for the Fanatics announcement that he's a Fanatics exclusive. Because, if the last 2 years, they've taken all the first round quarterbacks. I think there's been one or two exceptions, J.J. McCarthy, and I think Quentin Richardson the year before that. But usually they're trying to get exclusives on the first round quarterbacks. So I would expect them to try that again this year. And we'll see where it goes. But it's certainly not inconceivable that he might be one of the, especially if he signs cards and the other two don't, he could be the most expensive card to start some of, wherever he falls to. It happens. And at this point, he is a good value. He's in the 4th round. It's a good value.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good value.
You pick him here and he turns out to flame out and be a bust. It doesn't hurt as bad had the Steelers taken him at 21, which I thought they might do. Now you take him, you're playing with house money, because you could say, hey, we took a flyer. He's a first round grade. We got him in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, and it didn't work out, but we took a shot.
And remember, you're paying less money.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you still have the rookie contract. If he pans out, you've got yourself a super bargain.
Yeah.
That that will enable you to get not necessarily an all-pro or free agent, but that'll enable you to really get another quality player or pay extra money to a couple of your better players during the length of that contract. It's a great play on several reasons. And that's why I'm saying he could very well still be believe it or not, the most expensive card out of the packs, depending how things fall. By the way, my Giants also traded up to get a quarterback in the 1st round.
Jackson Dart, who a lot of people like, and then some people think he's the best quarterback in this draft.
And that's why they traded up for him. And again, that's a good value for the Giants. Figured that's a good value. I always liked Daniel Jones. That didn't quite work out. But Daniel Jones has some upside too still. But, one of the things to remember is drafts are drafts. They're better, but things still happen. Undrafted free agents can still become stars in the NFL. In my lifetime, Tony Romo is doing games, is the number 1 commentator for CBS. And he was an undrafted guy out of college. And he got a mega contract eventually. So, again, it happens. It's never a guarantee either way. Yes, more attention is paid to the first rounders because you've invested more money in them, but it's never a guarantee. People get hurt. Football is a violent game. It's a physical game.
Yep. Let's get some comments, and we'll kind of close this topic out for today and let the draft kind of speak for itself here in a couple hours. TJ says, support quarterback class in general. I agree. I think that's sort of part of the reason too. Good point here, I think, by John Williams. No player wants garbage in the locker room that the smell gets on everyone. I think there's some of the teams are scared of what maybe a player like that can do in that locker room. Tony says, McCord graduated from my son's high school. Great kid and nice attitude. The Steelers take him. I won't be that disappointed about it. Let's see. I don't think Stuke says, I don't think Dean is bad as LeVar Ball. Guess what? I agree. LeVar Ball, but he takes the cake for helicopter dad. But Deion's in that discussion. You know what I mean? So, Not funny. Says basically Shador is now in backup territory.
Yeah, I
Which
got to
is
agree with all that, and I really agree completely with what Rich is saying. I mean, this is the time probably to draft him now. I mean, you can't lose.
yeah,
You're going to pay him a low amount, and the upside is going to be huge. As far as
yeah,
his cards, well, we all know that the most desirable players are the quarterbacks. So I think no
yeah,
matter what, his cards are going to be valuable. Just like Cam Ward's, all the quarterback cards are really what people go after first. And I think that whether he's drafted whatever round, he's going to be desirable. I think all the quarterbacks cards are going to be the first ones that are going to be hyped. So I think that that's going to really help out. But again, he's going to have to prove himself eventually. If he doesn't prove himself, he's going to be another Trey Lance or something like that.
yeah. It's a great point too. Is right. A quarterback cards are always valuable, right? Right. I.e. Ryan Leaf. Remember
Yes.
him against Peyton Manning? People were buying and putting away Ryan Leaf cards, thinking he was the better of those two quarterbacks. And then when it becomes apparent or not, then they make their way into the dollar boxes at your favorite show. So initially, I don't think it's a good point, Orlando. I think people are still going to pony up some bucks and buy these quarterback cards. And then when the verdict really comes in that he's not what maybe we thought he might be, you'll see them, sold for pennies on the dollar just to get rid of them. So the draft, this draft is hurting his stock more in real time than probably hobby time. I'm sure there'll be
Right.
some effect. I know Ziggy asked whoever team drafts him, what is that price going to be lower now if you buy into a break and you buy that team? If I think Rich would say probably not, because people are still going to
Yeah.
want all the Shador Sanders out of that break, right? Whether it's a case break, half a case, 3 boxes, whatever the case may be. So, quarterbacks, very few are like locks. You even said, right? Cam Ward could be Tennessee could look, they drafted Will Levis 2 years
Yeah.
ago, and they're already moved on from him and drafted Cam Ward. 2 years from now, Tennessee could be drafting a quarterback to replace Cam Ward. So there's very few guys that are like no doubters. It's just they're just given grades and ratings and whatnot. Kyle McCord might be, 5 years from now, we might be saying he's the best quarterback from the 2025 class. I'm not predicting that, but it might be. And it's such a bad class that might not even be saying much. Maybe he's just sort of a spot starter, and he's the only one spot starting. Everyone else is out of the league or, second or third string. So it's crazy, but it's been the weirdest draft, guys, and
Yeah.
I'll be watching it today because my Steelers are going to take a quarterback. It's just who's it going to be, and if Shador is still on their board here with their later picks, and they don't take them with that quarterback room the way it is, I saw TJ's comment about the Browns, like I said, taking Gabriel over Sanders speaks volumes, right? If the Steelers don't take him today, if he's still on the board when their picks come up, that's very telling. It's already been telling, but even more so, guys. All right, we'll stay with football here, and Patrick Mahomes signed a deal with for autographs with Panini. So I didn't know how long this was, but Rich told me it's only good until they lose their license. So,
Okay.
Rich, do you want to chime in
No,
here?
so I read and if I remember correctly, according to what, and I've just double checked. I mean, AI is not perfect. I'm going to read this. Patrick Mahomes' Panini contract and Panini's overall license expire on March 31st, 2026. And I believe there are other players as well. I think Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders, speaking of them. By the way, I think Travis Hunter coming out will be the most expensive player
Yeah.
in pools. All their
Yep.
autograph contracts expire March 31st, 2020, 26, just the day the Panini contract ends and Fanatics Topps becomes the NFL licensee.
So
Therefore,
that's it. Go
so
ahead.
it's
Go
a
ahead.
1 year. So it's a 1 year deal, and that's fine. I mean, it'll be good to have good autographs in the pack. I mean, that's one of the complaints we've heard about the Panini products the last couple of years. That because of, as I pointed out earlier, Fanatics gobbling up the first round quarterbacks, the autographs out of the rookie autographs out of the packs have not been as good as they could have, as they had been previously, and not as good as they could have been. So this at least will get some interest into the Panini packs. And, you know, for the NFL and the NFLPA, having good players signing autographs in the Panini products this year is a win, because for the PA, they want to make more money. Let's be honest.
Right.
And having better players signing this year makes them more money. It makes the products more palatable for people buying, for people breaking, for people collecting, or for people who just want to buy a pack, go into their local store like I do and buy an occasional pack.
So let me
Go ahead.
ask you this, guys. This being a 1 year deal, right? Mahomes is not going to be a cheap contract. They're paying him millions for this 1 year deal. Might we see, which I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, just a ton of Mahomes autographs come out of Panini products for 1 year? In other words, if there was a year to buy Panini products, or the best chance to get a Mahomes autograph odds, would this be the year? Do you think they do that? Being they only have 1 year to do it, you know, just shoot up a bunch of shots on the way out the door and leave sort of with people having a good taste in their mouth about Panini, with the hopes that someday, and at least in their mind, that they might do licensed football many moons later. Like, are we going to see a ton of Mahomes autos, or not necessarily? Or, you know, but they if you read it, they did say they're going to do some special products, which I think it'll be like sort of like almost Mahomes, like Topps does with like certain players, where it's, you know, the judge box. And I think Panini's going to do that with Mahomes. But what do you think, guys? Might we see maybe more Mahomes autos in the market coming out of Panini packs?
Well, I mean, for sure, John. I mean, they're not going to pay all this money and not have Mahomes sign as much as he possibly can sign. You know, that's what they're going to look for, because they want to get their monies out of the product and make as much product as possible. My biggest concern, I think, is, are these going to be on-card autographs? Are they going to be, you know, just sticker autographs? And I think that's going to be a big thing for Panini. You know, people don't like, and they're turning away from the the sticker autographs. So I think Panini's going to have to try to get Mahomes to do on-card autographs. I think that'll create even a bigger demand, because personally, I hate the sticker autographs. What do you think of that, Rich? Do you think they're going to do that?
Ziggy made a really good point in his comments, that they're paying per autograph. And so they're going to pay for autographs. So I think they'll be selective, was Ziggy's comment. And I thought that was a really good comment. Where
you think and it might be, I don't know. They don't give you those terms, but so you think it might be, hey, it's 1,000 autos for $1 million.
Something like that.
Again,
yes.
I'm just making up numbers.
Yeah, and but John, I agree with your general concept. The concept is very much, you will sign X number of autographs at X dollars per autograph this year. That is the contract. That usually is the contract for the star and superstar players with the autograph contracts. I'm going to use the word the lesser players. You have to be a great player to get into the NFL, the NBA, the major leagues. You really do have to be a great player. But if you're what we call a common player in our parlance, you are happier to sign because you don't have as many opportunities to sign. Therefore, you don't necessarily take as much money, and you don't necessarily have caps as to how much you sign. So yes, there's probably certain parameters in the contract of any name players as to how much they get and how many autographs they sign.
Yeah, Ziggy asked, or someone asked stickers, or you did, Orlando. I think it's
Yeah.
Ziggy said it'll be both. I think you'll get both. I think when they can catch up to them, they'll have them do it on card. But football's an all year thing with training in the off season. So I think when the opportunity presents itself and they can sit down with him and have him sign some stuff, they'll be on card. And I think other times they'll be sending it to they'll be sending some to his team stickers and say sign these and get them back, and you'll find those on card. So I think it'll be both. Which one is more remains to be seen.
Well,
I'm just curious if we're going to see more Mahomes autos come out in 2025, 26 than we've had in previous products.
it depends if they
Before.
have any, if they have any lying around. If they do, you might, but if they don't, you won't. I mean, and you have to keep a few in reserve anyway for a card that comes damaged out of the pack. So you won't, if there's so I'm just going to use, like you would say, round numbers. If he has a contract to sign 1,000 items, you might only put 950 into the packs and save 50 for people that say my card got damaged in the pack, which does happen. Shipping things happen. You don't, you can't go to the printing press and get the card from the printing press directly. That would kind of be not good for several reasons, including theft. You could spend some time going bye-bye for that. And that's a teaser for what we think should have been our final topic. But it's certainly something to consider that he'll sign X amount, and then a product like National Treasures for Panini or whatever, they're super high end, they will be on card. But if you put some into the Donruss brand, which is their base brand, it'll be a sticker autograph.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple comments here before we move on to the next topic, and there's some good ones. This is a good one from Michael. The players are more aware of the hobby than any other time. Nailed it. That nailed it right on the head. With the players' union now involved, these players know exactly what's going on. They're getting a bigger piece of the pie than any previous time in hobby history. I think there's a good aspect to that, and there's I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's both good and bad. Good comment here from Ryan. There's a collect article suggesting why so many autographs are garbage today. More players weren't taught cursive, and way many requests by manufacturers. Yeah, how many times
I want to say something about that. When I was still at Beckett, which is way back in the day now, it's almost 20 years since this article. It could actually be 20 years since this article ran. And it got prompted by a Fernand Morency autograph on the football card, which was literally a check mark.
Yep.
We did an article about the young kids of some of the Beckett employees, their signature versus signatures of players on cards. This has been going on not just today, but for at least 2 or 3 decades now. And
but it's gotten worse though, Rich. I will say this: it's. I'm not saying it didn't exist prior, but it's become. I hate to use the word like epidemic in terms of autographs. Yes. I can't tell you how many times now. What you commonly see is the initials. So if I was signing the card, rather than me signing John Newman, you see a J and an N. And in some cases, like you said, they just kind of blend in. You can't even tell the individual initials. It's just
and
kind
some
of
them
one
sign it so small that it's even nothing. It's almost like a scribble right on the card.
And remember, when you have a contract to sign, I think there, and I don't remember the player's name, but there was some player, I believe a major league player, who talked about the differences of how he signs autographs depending on what the circumstances. There are some people in life who have beautiful signatures no matter what. And there are other people who do shortcuts depending on the situation. And
we're seeing, like, how do we even, like, JSA and Beckett and Steve Grad and all these authentication, how with that kind of auto, how do you even authenticate? You can't say they didn't sign it, and you almost can't say they did, because I could listen. I'm not an autograph talent like Forger, but I think I could replicate that because there's not.
Remember, JSA actually keeps I want to say video, but they have a photo of every autograph ever sent in. They have a monstrous. I'm going to assume Beckett has a similar database. I'm going to assume PSA DNA has a similar database because they can do quick opinions. But I know from experience, JSA keeps everything. They keep a photo of everything.
I agree, but we're not talking to Derek Jeter or Mariano Rivera auto, which is very intricate. We're talking about, in some case, just a mark or initials.
But even the
you
marks
or Orlando could replicate that.
Yeah.
But every mark, believe it or not, even the marks have specific way. Every player does most of their marks the same way. That's why there are penmanship experts. That's why, there are people who are qualified to do that.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I can't wait for some of these people with their official documents someday to be in court. And one of the differences is you used to have to write your name a lot. You don't have to write your name very much anymore. I'm going to go on a very quick tangent, and then we go back to sports. My mother-in-law, who's a little bit older, I had to take her to the driver's license office yesterday. Unlike a lot of people complaining about the DMV, it went very well. We got it through our appointment reasonably quickly. It was a bit tedious, but we got through it. But one of the things was she has to sign her name, and you had to go through the form. We had a very courteous rep helping us, which was wonderful. And I need to post this on Facebook. It's just been a screwy couple days. But my point was that you sign your name for your driver's license, in this case, her real ID, since she doesn't drive anymore. And she still signs her names on various things. Oh, I don't sign my name. I do RK. I don't sign my name. The only time you'll get a real what we used to call a money signature is like if I have to do something for a driver's license or an official document. And I mean, nowadays you can't even write on some of these things. You go and they give you this thing to use your finger, and I can't do that either.
Yeah.
So don't necessarily blame the players.
Yeah.
You don't have to sign as much nowadays.
Right.
Even in the real world. Yeah, you can probably type your term papers in school on a computer. Well, you always did that. You used a typewriter. But, you could probably bring a laptop in and sign something.
Yeah.
Well, me and Rich, we use stone tablets and a chisel.
Well, remember, guys, we used to sign checks. I mean,
I still do.
You have to.
I'm a dinosaur.
I still do some.
I think I've now written 3 checks in the last year. I think it's 3.
Everything's online. You can pay online.
I
write less checks than I ever did, but I still.
I know you pay my rent on Zelle. I pay my rent on Zelle. It's like, okay.
Yeah. The only time you're going to sign your full name like that is going to be on a check or a legal document, And these young guys now, they don't write checks. They don't even have checkbooks. Everything is all, online. So they're not used to that. And the other thing you got to look at, John, is that a lot of guys, if you get them in person and they sign their autograph in person, it's going to be like different than when they sit down and do it, with a little more time. And I've seen a lot of autographs that have been gotten in person that have been rejected by JSA because it's either a quick scribble, it just doesn't match some of those things sometimes. And the person sending the collector's like, I got this in person, but it's still different than the regular autograph the guy does sometimes.
And I'm going to give you a different story the other way. One of the people I used to work with at Beckett got a Frank Thomas autograph when he was still in the minor leagues. It's a beautiful autograph. Frank doesn't sign that way anymore. It got rejected, even though he got it in person because it was too good. I mean,
players have changed how they sign from one era to the next, and I think, like you said, Rich, probably based on demand.
Yeah.
I will stick up for the players in this regard. They just don't teach cursive in school anymore.
No.
So I'll give you an example. I'm a teaching assistant at the high school level. So I was curious. So we sort of had some downtime, and we had the freshmen in my room, and I handed out an index card. We have 7 freshmen in our group that I teach. I gave each one of those 7 kids an index card and a pen, and I said, sign your name, and I'll come back around and collect these. I came back around, collected them. 6 of those index cards had their name just printed.
Right.
Just written. normally, not one was semi-cursive. It was like an attempt. I wouldn't even call it cursive. It was like they really weren't taught, but they knew what cursive meant, and they tried to do it. We're just not teaching it anymore. At the low, you get to high school, you either know it or you don't. We don't necessarily teach it. Although I'd never, if a kid came to me and said, "Mr. Newman, can you teach me cursive?" I sure as heck would try, right? But we're not doing that anymore, and so we're losing that. And so that's going to be the trend, right? When these young people become athletes, their signatures are going to represent the fact that they don't know how to sign cursive. Either that, or they'll learn, because then they become athletes where their signatures are in demand. But it's gotten worse rather than, it's always, like Rich said, it's always been an issue. It's to some degree or another, but now it's even a bigger issue, if you want to call it an issue.
And Mr. Newman, to be honest, don't you? And I'm because my wife does the same thing. Aren't you a teacher's assistant for special ed?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that has, my wife teaches special ed, so I hear the stories, and it's harder sometimes for special ed kids to do anything. You might have to give an example on the blackboard, if there's still a blackboard in your school, or the whiteboard, the difference between printing and cursive, because they might not know the difference, and that because they're not taught that. You are correct, they're not taught that because there's no need to teach that. So you might actually have
I'd still, Ziggy, I just posted that comment. I'd still like it to be taught. You don't have to spend a ton of time. What if you spent 5-10 minutes each school day until you felt like someone had it down, so they have it in their tool belt, right? I'm not saying they maybe use it a lot, but it's a nice tool to have in your tool belt to be able to write in cursive, whether you sign checks or not, right? Even just to pen a letter, if you're, again, who pens letters anymore? I'm John, a dinosaur, because I still do it.
Yeah,
I still do it.
Yeah,
John. I imagine John and Orlando, who ship out stuff. I don't really ship out stuff, but if you ship out stuff, even a thank you and you sign your name is a letter nowadays.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a courtesy letter. To a personal touch is good.
Well, think about this, John and Rich. I've seen young kids right now that do not even know how to read cursive, not just write. They can't read something in cursive. And I've seen that. One of my friends, Ryan from Breakout Cards, he had a letter that was written in cursive, and he could barely read it. He had trouble reading it. And this is a guy, college educated.
Ryan's written.
I was going to say Ryan's a smart guy. It's not an intelligence that.
No, it's just they're not used to reading or writing in cursive because it's just not taught, and they don't grow up that way like we did. We had pages where we had to sign our name and write the words in cursive, repeating it over and over and over until we got it right. And nowadays, they can't even read the cursive writing. That's crazy.
Yeah, a couple things, a couple comments here, guys. Ziggy says he's not against it, just more of a lost art. It is. Cursive is a lost art. I'm glad I have that art or skill, if you will. Lauren makes a nice comment here. I don't typically use trigonometry, but they make me take it 4 year, right? Algebra is a famous version of math, right? We teach it.
Geometry actually matters. Yeah. I mean, if you ever drive a car, geometry.
Well, let's be real. Unless you're like an architect or a math professor, you're not going to probably use that form of math. You're going to use
but geometry. If you think about it, geometry, the other stuff, it actually does matter because you drive. You have to know how to park a car and do things. So there actually is a reason to take. You don't realize it, but geometry helps you drive a car. Algebra and trig, on the other hand, and calculus, it's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, but it's crazy because even at card shows, I mean, the kids nowadays, you go to the card shows and they're doing the deal and they bought 3 cards. They got to use their calculator to figure out how much it is. They can't even add the price of the 3 cards they're buying, 25, 55, and 68 or whatever dollars, and they can't do it. They have to bring out their phone and do it that way. So I just think,
and Ziggy, as I pointed out, my wife teaches special ed. I hear the stories. I was just pointing out how difficult it is for some of these students to follow instructions. I mean, I hear about special ed kids every day. So I mean,
And I don't want.
John is to
and
be
I
commended for the work he does
well
on that.
listen.
So
I
I
enjoy
don't want
it.
to go
I
into that,
enjoy.
Ziggy. This is not an insult to special ed kids. They have special needs, and it's
Yeah.
harder for them to comprehend and do things. And that's just a stated fact. That's unfortunately part of life.
Yeah, real quick. I appreciate some of the nice comments about me teaching special ed. I love it. I enjoy it. My only regret is I actually just didn't do it sooner than I did. I'm on my fourth year. I'll be starting my fifth year next year. I love it. The kids are great. We're a little bit the group I'm involved with, just for full transparency, a lot higher functioning. We teach algebra, we teach world history. A lot of their issues are a little autism, coping mechanisms. Can only handle so much thrown at them, that sort of thing. So, but we have our moments. Sometimes we have to clear a room and that sort of thing, and it's not always easy, but it's every day I drive to work and I'm looking forward to getting there. I really, I do enjoy it, and I learn things from the kids as much as maybe they learn from me. So, really do appreciate what I do. And again, thank you for the comments.
Speaking of special ed, I think we'll go to our final topic of somebody who probably should have been special ed when he was a young person.
All right, guys. I don't have a graphic for this, but I wanted to. I hate this story, and I hate that we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think it's we do, and whatnot. We know one of the backyard breakers, Grant, and I don't even like giving them the publicity this will get them. But I won't even mention the breaking outfit. People mostly know, so no free pub for the breaking outfit. But one of those guys, Grant, who said some really bad comments about being a young lady, that was obviously off-putting and brutal. No other way to put it. He was suspended. It took a little bit longer than I would have liked to see, but they did suspend him. Well, he's back now, 83 days later, and again. Try to be very transparent. I didn't use Whatnot before that. Had I been, I would have stopped. So I don't use them now. Obviously, I don't. You look at my phone, you will not find the Whatnot app on it because I don't have a need for it. But if I was a Whatnot user when this happened, I would have probably waited to see what their response was, and if they were slow, I just say, listen. If I was buying into breaks or buying cards, there's plenty other fish in the sea, so to speak. Plenty other platforms I can give my money to. But I think what this goes to show you, and then I'll let you guys talk, is it's money over morals, right?
Yes.
Whatnot says, the hobby will forget. The hobby will forgive. The hobby won't care. In the grand scheme of things, listen, he's a personality that does draw people in. And we're going to pick that over doing the right thing because this, right?
Yes.
And I just thought to myself, I'm being critical of Whatnot, but what company is there? A company out there, and Rich has been around a while. Orlando, I have. Is there a company that would pick morals over doing the right thing, over money, over financial gain?
John, I don't want to necessarily say they're moral. But both Orlando and I listen almost every morning to our mutual hobby friend, Bo Spencer Thomas, and Hobby Evolution, a former hobby hotline host himself. And Bo is doing now eBay Live. I've listened to them all. He because of his radio background, he's got the cadence, he's got the rhythm within about 4 or 5 shows. The last one I listened to was dead on. He had the cadence and the rhythm But their eBay Live is hand selecting the people to go on. At least to ramp it up, they are taking their sweet time to move it from beta to alpha, so to speak. And they are picking and choosing very carefully whom they want to represent their brand. They're doing outboarding. They're doing onboarding. They're checking everybody's references. They're doing it the right way. I suspect if I gave Whatnot $1 million, they just let me on. And this is not an insult. Well, that is, they are a business. They are in business to make money. eBay wants to go slower on that. There is nothing wrong with what eBay is doing. In fact, that is probably the right way to build a business. Do it slowly. Start with people you trust. Start with people with good reputations. My employer, ComC, is on doing eBay Live. And they're doing very well with it. Because they're building. There's a local card store I know. RJ Dukes, Ryan is on eBay Live. They have so far built a very good platform. I'm not necessarily saying they're the only one, but that's the major difference I see between them and Whatnot at this point is eBay is making sure they're building block by block and they're getting quality people to do it. And by the way, congratulations to Bo. He is moving his Madison card show to a new upgraded location from the hotel. And I suspect the show will all be in one location instead of separate floors and separate ballrooms going forward. But that's a different subject for a different day. But that's really the point I wanted to make. You have the way eBay's doing it, which is building it block by block, and the way Whatnot's doing it, which basically lets everybody on. Most people are good, but every once in a while you get somebody who goes off the rail, and there's supposedly morals clauses and Whatnot that say this should have gone away.
Yeah,
one comment. Hang on, Elaine. I want to respond to this comment from foul ball. It says bash on Whatnot because you don't use it or sell on it. I can only speak for myself here, foul ball. Even if I had been using Whatnot and they allowed him back on, I would have stopped using Whatnot. I would have deleted the app. I would have deactivated or closed my account and done business elsewhere. So I just happen to not be using it already. But even if I was an active user, my stance and position would not fluctuate. I would not be a user any longer had I been prior. So, and I'm not bashing. I want to call it bashing on them.
DFW, so I don't do any online buying.
Yeah, I agree with John 100%. And I really think that if Grant was
one more comment, I don't want to get in the back.
Finish real quick. I think if Grant was just a regular Joe Blow on there and not one of their biggest breakers, I think if it was just a guy like a Joe Blow, anybody, I think they would have gotten rid of that guy. But because it's Grant, because he's bringing in so much money and he's one of the biggest breakers on Whatnot, I think that's why they allowed him to continue.
So foul ball says, if you don't use it, how do you know what's going on? There's a thing, it's 2025, there's a thing called video and replay and social media where people actually put what he did and said on it. So I didn't see it live. So if I don't watch it live, so it doesn't count. If I don't see it when he said it, it means he didn't say it. Is this like if the tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, you can't go look in the woods and see the tree that fell down? Like, no, I didn't see it when he said it, but I saw it afterwards. That's good enough with me. If I leave a tape recorder in the house and call my wife a bunch of mean names, it still counts, right? She just hits play and then here's me. Like, that's one of the weirdest comments we've seen in Hobby Hotline. If you don't use it, how do you know? How do we know? Were you around for the Hindenburg disaster or the JFK shooting? We know those happened, right? I didn't see it. JFK's still alive. He's 98 years old. He lives in Cape Cod. Like,
John, he'd be 100. He'd be 108 now.
All right, but that's why stay in school and take math, kids.
Okay, we've hit the top of the hour. I think we've given this topic more than enough. Yeah. More than enough time. I have a card show to go to, so let's wrap.
And listen. Let me just say this too. If you use Whatnot and your user, whether before, after, continuous, that's your business.
Right.
That's your business. Just like it's my business to say I don't use it, and even if I did, I would have stopped. That's my choice, right? If you choose to use it, I'm not like it doesn't make you the Antichrist. I'm not. I'm not mad at you. I might be mad at Whatnot for allowing that conduct to kind of happen and then give someone a pass, but that's not on you unless you said that, which I'm assuming you didn't. So
Michael Ziggy has Michael, aka Ziggy, has a couple of really good points. We should.
Yeah, well, Ziggy,
And
who's
the
a dad,
fence
right?
ones
Ziggy's the
before
dad.
that.
This, I think, too. Again, I don't want to make this a dad versus you're not a dad thing, or a parent versus you're not a parent thing. But Michael says I was launching and whatnot and decided not to, right? Um, and let me take the other angle. If Ziggy would have said, you know what, I don't like the comment, I don't stand for that, but I'm doing my business. I don't believe in that, but I'm a separate entity. Ziggy No Cards is Ziggy No Card. It's not this breaking outfit. I wouldn't be mad at him for that. I might, if I have any access to Whatnot for allowing that sort of. I don't want to say completely unscathed. There was a suspension, but I don't think the punishment in the end fit the crime. So my ire is towards Whatnot, not people using Whatnot, right? That's your choice. That's your choice. My choice is not. I didn't before. Had I been using, I would have stopped. So, and again, someone can say, "Well, that's easy to say when you're not." It is, but I'm telling you the truth because I know what I would have did. So that's all. I'm not anyone that uses Whatnot. I'll shake your hand if I see you at the National. If you know what I mean, that has nothing to do with you. You didn't put the words in someone else's mouth and say that. I just choose not to do business with a company that sort of almost condones that.
Yeah,
That's
remember
all.
they didn't eliminate Grant's company. They didn't suspend them. They just suspended Grant. So all those 83 days, they were still breaking. They were still making money. They were doing their normal thing. It was just Grant wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it is not, for me, it's not a like, hey, don't use Whatnot. It's like I'm not using Whatnot. Do whatever you feel is right in your heart. But to say, well, you didn't see it, it doesn't count. That won't, not in 2025 where I have 6 cameras around my house. Like you can see me go to the bathroom. You may not
That's
be
visual we
here.
don't need, John.
No thanks.
I know. I don't have one in my bathroom just for you people who think I'm weird. But I was just a little embellishment there. Like, it doesn't matter whether you saw it when he said it live or you saw it after the fact. It happened. It happened. He said it. If I go to school and say something off color and one of the kids goes home and tells his parent, Mr. Newman said this, so I was offended. Right? I might have to answer for that. That parent files a report. The parent wasn't there, right? But enough people saw it, and it becomes a big deal. I could potentially lose my employment. So just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen or it shouldn't be dealt with or accordingly. So that's sort of a cop-out answer to maybe someone who likes Whatnot or uses. And again, I'm not even mad at you, foul ball. If, like, you're a Whatnot user,
That's good.
knock yourself out. Have fun. Get some deals. You're transacting in the hobby, being an active hobby.
Or if you're selling, I hope if you're selling and you're selling honestly, go for it. Be wonderful.
Yeah. And Ziggy makes another point, right? It's not one bad guy in the hobby. He's not the only guy who's done something off color, right? It happens, right? I'm not saying they're Charlie Manson. I'm not saying we give them the debt, but like we have to be responsible in what we say.
I'll use one of my lines I wrote from Rich Muller many years ago on Sports Collectors Daily. And I'm paraphrasing. If I got sent up the river for 10 years and I came back with 1921 EXXX, the fan cards, of which 4 copies are known, period, and I came up with 10 of them, one including a Babe Ruth. You know what the only question people would ask me is? How much are they?
How much? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only question they would ask. They wouldn't care that I spent 10 years in jail. They wouldn't care that. All they care is, oh, this card is unique. It's a Babe Ruth. It's legit. Yeah. It's real. It's got to be worth X zillions of dollars. How much do you want for it? That's the only question they'd ask. Pardon the pun in today's world, but stuff trumps all.
Yeah.
And with that, let's wrap up this puppy.
All right.
Hey, guys, everyone in the chat room, as always, we appreciate you adding commentary to the show, whether we agree with you or not, and vice versa, whether you agree with us or not, right? it's fun to do on a Saturday morning. Chop up a little hobby. I was glad I got to do it today with Rich in Orlando and you guys in the chat room. If you're listening to us after the fact, just on audio, we appreciate you as well. Everybody, have a great weekend.
Great chat, guys. Thank you. And as I saw Chris Harris in the chat, so keep on rocking in the free world in honor of Chris.
There you go. Let's see where Shador goes today.
Yeah.
Or if he goes today.
Okay.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Rich.